My name is Naomi, and for 6 years, I was the family joke. Not the fun kind of joke. Not the one where everyone laughs and pats you on the back and says, "Oh, you." I mean the other kind. The kind where your name becomes shorthand for disappointment. Where your mother sighs before she says it. Where your sister uses you as a punchline at dinner parties in front of people you've never met. "This is Naomi," she'd say, swirling her wine. "My sister. She's finding herself. Still. 6 years of still. I want to tell you this story slowly, because that's how it happened to me. Slowly. And then all at once, the way a dam doesn't break so much as it finally gives up holding back what it was never built to hold forever. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand who Vanessa was before you understand what happened to her. Vanessa is my older sister by 4 years. Growing up, she was the golden one. Valedictorian. Debate captain. The girl whose acceptance letters got read aloud at Thanksgiving while mine got quietly set aside because I hadn't even applied anywhere that year. I was homeschooling myself through something our parents never understood. Numbers. Markets. The strange, invisible architecture of money and how it moves. I didn't go to a fancy university. I didn't walk across a stage while relatives cheered. I dropped out of community college at 19 because I'd found something that made more sense to me than lecture halls ever did. A small trading account, $400 I'd saved from a part-time job, and an obsession with understanding why some companies grew and others collapsed. My family saw a girl who quit school. They didn't see the 11-hour days I spent studying balance sheets. They didn't see the 3 years I lived in a converted garage, eating rice and eggs, reinvesting every dollar instead of buying anything that looked like success. They didn't see the failures either. And there were plenty. A currency bet that nearly wiped me out at 22. A partnership that fell apart and cost me 8 months of work. But failures, real failures, are quiet. They don't announce themselves at dinner tables. Only the visible ones do. Meanwhile, Vanessa became a corporate consultant, and by 28, she was very good at it. She worked for a firm that advised luxury brands and private equity groups, and she was climbing. Genuinely climbing. I'll give her that. She wasn't lying about her success. She'd earned it. What she hadn't earned was the right to build her entire identity on being better than me. Every family gathering became a stage for her. She'd talk about her clients, her bonuses, her corner office with the skyline view. And then, like clockwork, she'd turn to me. "And how's the trading thing going, Naomi?" She always said the trading thing like it was a hobby. Like I collected stamps. I never corrected her. That's the part people don't understand when they hear this story. I could have corrected her at any point. I could have shown her account statements. I could have mentioned the fund I quietly built starting at 24, the one that grew from $400 into something that, by the time I was 30, had a value with more zeros than most people see in their banking apps in a lifetime. But I didn't. And it wasn't because I was ashamed. It was because I had learned something in those quiet years that my sister, for all her intelligence, had never learned. Attention is a currency too, and spending it recklessly makes you poor in ways money can't fix. I had built something real by staying invisible. I ran my fund under a holding company with a name that meant nothing to anyone, Meridian Veil Capital. And I never once put my face on it. No interviews, no LinkedIn posts, no thought leadership. Just returns, quarter after quarter, year after year, compounding in silence. My family thought I was still trading $400 in a garage. I let them think that, for 6 years. I want to be honest with you. It wasn't easy. There's a particular kind of pain in sitting at a table full of people who love you, technically, and hearing them describe you as a cautionary tale. My mother once told a family friend, in front of me, "We just hope she figures out what she wants to do with her life." I was 31 years old at the time. I controlled a portfolio worth more than that family friend's entire net worth times 100. And I said nothing. I smiled, passed the potatoes, and went home that night to close a deal worth $40 million over encrypted email. You might be wondering why I didn't just tell them. Trust me. I asked myself that question in the shower, in the car, at 2 in the morning more times than I can count. But here's the truth. The moment I told them, it would become about them. My mother would cry and say she always believed in me, which wasn't true. Vanessa would find some way to make it about her own success, too. Some comparison, well, I always said you had potential. I didn't want my success to become a group project for people who hadn't done the work. I wanted to hold it, privately, like something sacred, until the moment came when it would mean something on its own terms. I didn't know that moment was coming. I certainly didn't know it would come through Vanessa. It started on a Tuesday in March. Vanessa called me, which was unusual because Vanessa mostly texted, and only when she needed something, like a ride to the airport or someone to water her plants. But this was a call, and her voice had an edge to it I hadn't heard before. Excitement, mixed with something like disbelief. "Naomi, I have to tell someone, and Mom's at book club. You will not believe what just happened." What happened? I got the meeting. The meeting. Do you know who Meridian Veil Capital is? My stomach did something strange. A slow, cold drop, like missing a stair in the dark. "I've heard of it," I said carefully. "They're one of the most secretive investment firms in the country. Nobody knows who runs it. No public partners, no interviews, nothing. But they're massive, Naomi. Massive. And my firm has been trying to land them as a client for 2 years. 2 years. And today, out of nowhere, their office reached out to us. To me specifically. They want me to lead the account." I sat down. I had to. "That's incredible," I said, and I meant it in a strange, vertiginous way. Because I knew exactly why Meridian Veil had reached out to her firm. I had approved it myself 3 days earlier, without knowing, without any way of knowing, that the account lead on the other side would be my own sister. "There's an event," she continued, breathless. "In 3 weeks. A private dinner where the client relationship officially launches. My whole firm will be there. Partners, the managing director, everyone. And apparently someone from Meridian Veil's inner circle is coming in person, which never happens. They're famously private. I need this to go perfectly, Naomi. This is the account that makes partner for me. This is everything. I should tell you now, so there's no confusion later. I run Meridian Veil Capital. I am the founder. I am, functionally, the inner circle she was so anxious about. I had built it from nothing, in a garage, with $400, while my family called me a failure. And now my sister was about to build her entire career on winning my account, without knowing that the account and I were the same thing. Here's where you'd expect me to say I planned some grand, cinematic reveal right then. I didn't. Honestly, my first instinct was to quietly pass the account to someone else on my team, to avoid the collision entirely. It felt too strange, too coincidental, almost cruel in a way I hadn't intended. But then Vanessa said something that changed my mind. "I just wish you could see this world sometime, Naomi. It's a different level. I don't say this to be mean, but people like Meridian Veil's people, they don't even know places like where you work exist. It's just a different universe." There it was. Not malicious. Exactly. Worse. It was casual. Thoughtless. The kind of cruelty that comes from someone who has never once considered that you might be more than what they've decided you are. "I'd love to see that world sometime," I said quietly. "Maybe someday," she said, already distracted, already moving on to logistics. "Anyway, I have to go. I need to prep. This is huge, Naomi. Huge." I hung up the phone and sat in my office for a long time, looking out at the city. My assistant, Priya, one of maybe 6 people who knew what I actually looked like in real life rather than through a corporate seal, knocked and asked if I wanted the Whitmore contracts reviewed before end of day. "Priya," I said, "change of plans for the Belrose Consulting kickoff dinner in 3 weeks. I'm attending in person." She blinked. "You never attend in person." "I know," I said. "Make sure they don't announce me in advance. I want to walk in unannounced." I could see the question in her eyes. Why now? Of all accounts, of all dinners. But she didn't ask. That's one of the reasons I trusted her. The next 3 weeks were, I'll admit, some of the strangest of my life. I watched, from a careful distance, as Vanessa's firm, Belrose Consulting, began preparing for the biggest night of her career. I heard about it secondhand at 2 family dinners because, of course, Vanessa couldn't stop talking about it. "They're flying in caterers from New York," she said at one dinner, practically glowing. "The managing director wants everything perfect. He said if this account goes well, I'm being fast-tracked to senior partner." Can you imagine? 29 years old, senior partner. My mother beamed at her. My father raised a glass. And then, because some habits never die, Vanessa turned to me with the particular smile she reserved for these moments. Soft, a little pitying, entirely unaware of its own condescension. "What about you, Naomi? Still doing the trading?" "Still doing the trading," I confirmed. "That's nice," she said, in the tone people use for children's art projects. "It's good you have something. Not everyone needs to be ambitious in the same way." I want you to sit with that sentence for a second, because it's the sentence that finally, quietly, made up my mind about something. Not everyone needs to be ambitious in the same way. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She genuinely believed she was being generous. That's what made it unbearable. She had built an entire, comfortable worldview where my invisibility was proof of my smallness, and she had never once entertained the possibility that she might be wrong. I went home that night and told Priya to confirm my attendance formally. No entourage, no announcement, no name on the guest list beyond N. Callaway, Meridian Veil Capital. Just me, walking in, the way I'd walked into rooms for years, quietly, unremarkably, until the moment it mattered. The night of the dinner arrived on a Thursday in early April. Belrose Consulting had rented an entire floor of a hotel downtown. The kind of place with dark wood paneling and low lighting designed to make everyone feel important. I arrived 20 minutes late on purpose, dressed simply, nothing that screamed wealth, because I have never needed to perform what I actually am. I could hear Vanessa before I saw her. Her laugh, bright and practiced, carrying across the room as she worked the space, shaking hands with partners and junior associates alike, glowing under the attention of what she believed was the biggest night of her professional life. I stood near the entrance for a moment, unnoticed, watching my sister in her element. And I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not triumph, but a strange, heavy sadness. Because I could see, clearly, that she was good at this. She was warm, sharp, genuinely skilled at making people feel valued. Somewhere along the way, though, she had confused being good at her job with being better than people who did different jobs. She had confused visibility with worth. The managing director, a tall, silver-haired man named Aldrich Weiss, was making his way toward the small podium at the front of the room, ready to give opening remarks welcoming their new, mysterious client. Vanessa stood beside him, practically vibrating with anticipation, scanning the room every few seconds for the important guest from Meridian Veil she'd been told to expect. I walked forward. I saw the exact moment she noticed me. Her eyes swept past me once, dismissively, the way you glance past a coworker's cousin at an office party. Then they swept back, confused, because something about the way people near the door had gone quiet didn't match the sister she thought she knew. Priya, standing near the podium with a small earpiece, caught my eye and gave the faintest nod to Aldrich Weiss. He'd been briefed, of course. He had to know who was walking through his door, even if his junior associate didn't. His expression shifted from polite anticipation to something closer to reverence, and he stepped away from the podium immediately, walking toward me with his hand already extended. "Miss Callaway," he said, loudly enough for the room to hear, his voice carrying real weight, real deference. "It's an extraordinary honor. We didn't expect you to attend in person. Meridian Veil's founder hasn't appeared at a client function in over 4 years." The room went silent in that particular way rooms go silent when something has shifted and nobody yet understands how. I watched Vanessa's face. I watched it change in stages, like watching ice crack across a lake. First confusion, then the beginning of recognition, then a kind of dawning horror as 3 weeks of assumptions collapsed in real time. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Did you say founder?" Aldrich turned to her, still holding my hand in a warm, respectful shake. "Vanessa, I'd like you to formally meet the person whose account you've been working so hard to win. Naomi Calloway, founder and majority owner of Meridian Veil Capital. I watched my sister's mouth open and close without sound. I could have let the moment sit in its cruelty. I could have let her drown in it, in front of her partners, in front of the managing director whose career-making promotion decision now hinged on how gracefully his newest associate handled discovering her own sister was the client she'd spent 2 years chasing. Believe me, some small, tired part of me wanted to. But I want to tell you something important about revenge, because that's the word people will use when they hear this story. Revenge is loud. Revenge wants an audience. What I actually wanted, standing in that room, was something quieter and, I think, more powerful. I wanted the truth to simply exist in the open air, finally, without me having to defend it or announce it. I wanted 6 years of still doing the trading thing to dissolve on its own, under its own weight, the moment the room understood what it had actually been looking at all along. Vanessa and I know each other, I said simply, extending a hand toward my sister, giving her, I think, the only gift I had left to give in that moment. An exit that didn't require public collapse. She's my sister. The room made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a held breath. Vanessa took my hand like it belonged to a stranger. Her palm was damp. Her eyes were wide, glassy, doing rapid calculations I could almost hear. Every dinner, every dismissive comment, every still finding herself, replaying behind her expression in real time. I didn't know, she said quietly, just to me, beneath the noise of the room slowly resuming its low murmur of stunned conversation. Naomi, I had no idea. Why didn't you? Would it have mattered how I told you? I asked, and I meant it as an honest question, not a cutting one. You've had 6 years of information suggesting otherwise, and you never once asked a real question. You assumed. She didn't have an answer for that. To her credit, she didn't try to manufacture one. I want to be clear about what happened next, because the version of this story that would go viral, the version with the most dramatic thumbnail, would have me walking out, pulling the account, ruining her career on the spot as some grand gesture of justice. That's not what happened. And honestly, I think the real ending matters more. I stayed. I gave a short, quiet toast at Aldrich's request, thanking Belrose Consulting for their partnership, complimenting the team's professionalism, which was genuine. Vanessa's actual work had been excellent. I'd seen the reports. I kept the account with the firm. I did not have Vanessa removed from it, but I did do one thing differently. Before I left that night, I asked to speak with her alone, in the quiet hallway outside the ballroom, away from the noise and the recovering murmur of 200 stunned consultants. I'm not doing this to humiliate you, I told her. I've had 6 years to think about how this conversation might go, and none of the versions I imagined involved me feeling good about tonight. I don't feel good. I feel tired. I'm so sorry, she said, and her voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard since we were kids. I said such stupid things. For years, I don't even know how to. You don't have to fix it tonight, I said. But I need you to understand something, and I need you to actually hear it, not just apologize your way past it. You built an entire identity on being the successful one, and it required someone to be the unsuccessful one, and you picked me for that role before you ever had the facts. That's not an accident of ignorance. That's a choice you made, over and over, at every dinner, for 6 years. She was crying by then, quietly, the kind of crying people do when they're trying very hard not to be seen doing it. I don't know how to undo that, she said. You don't undo it, I told her. You just stop doing it going forward. That's all anyone can ever really offer. I left the dinner that night without fanfare. No dramatic exit, no final line delivered over my shoulder. Just Priya falling into step beside me in the elevator, glancing at me with the particular careful expression she uses when she's deciding whether to say something. That went about as well as it could have, she said finally. I don't know if well is the word, I said. But it's done. 6 years of done. I won't pretend the story ends with some perfect, tearful reconciliation, because real life rarely hands you that kind of bow. Things between Vanessa and me are better now, genuinely better, but they're not effortless. She still catches herself sometimes, mid-sentence, before she says something dismissive, and you can see her actually stop and reconsider, which is more than I ever got from her before. My mother, when she found out, and word travels fast in families, cried and said she was proud of me, and I let her say it, even though some old, tired part of me wanted to ask where that pride had been for 6 years of dinners. But I've learned that holding people to the exact ledger of every past comment is its own kind of prison, and I didn't build Meridian Veil Capital by staying trapped in the past. I built it by moving forward, quietly, one decision at a time, until the decisions spoke for themselves. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this. The people who call you a failure are almost always measuring you against a picture they've already decided to believe, not against the truth of who you actually are. You don't owe anyone a progress report to prove your worth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is exactly what I did for 6 years. Keep building, quietly, in the dark, until the day the truth simply walks into the room on its own and introduces itself. That night taught my sister something it took her 29 years and one silent business card to learn. It taught me something too, something I think matters just as much. That vindication, when it finally comes, doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like relief. Quiet, exhausted, long overdue relief. And that, I've come to believe, is worth more than any applause.